I have a few questions for you before we start. How often do you practice your listening skills? Do you listen to English every day? What type of content do you enjoy listening to? Music, podcasts, or maybe movies? The more you listen, the better you become. So today I'm going to talk a little slower than usual to help you understand, and together, we'll work on improving your listening skills step by step. As we dive into today's topic, remember that practice makes perfect. And the more you expose yourself to English, the easier it becomes. Listening is one of the most important skills when learning a new language, and today, we'll talk about how you can improve your listening skills with simple, daily practices. Now, let's start with something simple. When was the last time you listened to an English podcast? How did it go? Did you understand everything, or were there some parts that were a little tricky? It's okay if you didn't catch everything. That's part of the learning process. The good news is, today's session will help you tackle some of those challenges. So, dear listeners, today I'll focus on how you can improve your English listening skills by making listening a daily habit. You don't need to spend hours each day. Just a few minutes of focused listening can make a big difference. Remember, the more often you practice, the better you will get. Don't worry if you don't understand everything right away. It's completely normal. One of the easiest ways to improve your listening is by listening to content that interests you. Do you like watching movies or TV shows? Try watching them in English. Even if you don't understand all the words, you'll start to notice patterns in how words are used, and you'll begin to pick up new vocabulary. If you find the language difficult to follow, try turning on the subtitles. This way, you can match the words you hear with the text, which can be very helpful for beginners. Another way to improve is by listening to podcasts. There are so many podcasts out there, covering all kinds of topics. Find one that you enjoy. It's important to listen to things that interest you because it keeps you motivated. Whether it's a podcast about history, food, or technology, make sure it's something you like. The more you enjoy what you're listening to, the more likely you'll keep practicing. Now let's talk about active listening. What do I mean by this? Active listening means that you don't just listen passively while doing other things. Instead, try to really focus on what's being said. When you listen, pay attention to the words, but also try to understand the context. Ask yourself, what is the speaker trying to say? What's the main idea? Are there any words or phrases that are difficult for you? Active listening is when you take the time to understand the deeper meaning of what's being said. In addition to active listening, try repeating what you hear. After listening to a podcast or watching a show, pause and repeat some of the sentences you heard. This helps with pronunciation, vocabulary, and memory. If you don't understand something, don't be afraid to rewind and listen again. Repetition is a great way to learn, and it helps improve both listening and speaking. Let's not forget that listening is a skill that requires practice. Just like learning to ride a bike or play an instrument, the more you practice, the better you become. Don't get discouraged if you don't understand everything at first. Keep listening, keep practicing, and you'll see improvements. Also, don't hesitate to listen to different types of English. Try listening to speakers with different accents and voices. The more variety you expose yourself to, the more adaptable your listening skills will become. Now that we've covered some key tips on how to improve your listening skills, let's dive deeper into each one, giving you even more strategies to help you on your learning journey. As we move forward, I want you to keep in mind that learning English is a gradual process. It's completely okay to take small steps each day. Each small step you take adds up, and before you know it, you'll see great progress. We've already discussed how important it is to listen regularly, even for just a few minutes. But let's expand on this idea. One way to make your listening practice more effective is by setting a routine. For example, you could listen to a short English podcast episode every morning as part of your daily routine, or watch a 5 to 10 minute video before bed. This creates a regular listening habit, which helps your brain get used to hearing English. Over time, your ability to understand different accents and vocabulary will improve. And remember, it doesn't have to be all about the formal content like podcasts or educational videos. Listening to English in fun, real-life situations is a great way to improve as well. For instance, if you enjoy music, try listening to your favorite English songs and reading the lyrics at the same time. This is a fun way to engage with the language. By understanding song lyrics, you'll learn common phrases, new words, and even cultural references. Songs often have a rhythm and repetition that make them easier to remember, so it's a great exercise for both listening and pronunciation. Now, let's take a closer look at active listening. As I mentioned earlier, active listening involves focusing entirely on what's being said without distractions. When you're listening actively, it's important to remember to pause and think about the content you're hearing. Don't just let the words pass by. Try to understand the meaning behind the message. For example, if you're listening to a conversation in English, don't just focus on individual words. Instead, try to understand the context. Ask yourself, what's the speaker trying to tell me? What's the purpose of this conversation? These questions help you process the information deeply and ensure that you're not just hearing words, but understanding them. Another great way to practice active listening is by summarizing what you've heard. After listening to a short story, podcast, or conversation, pause and try to retell it in your own words. This helps reinforce your understanding of what you've just heard. It also builds your speaking skills as you're practicing recalling and using the words and phrases you've learned. You can even keep a journal to write down summaries of what you've listened to each day. This will give you a record of your progress and help you see how much you've learned over time. Now let's talk a bit about the benefits of reviewing and revisiting content. After you've listened to something once, go back and listen again. You'll catch words and phrases that you missed the first time. This is especially useful for complex or advanced content. By reviewing, you give your brain the opportunity to absorb and understand the information better. Over time, you'll notice that the vocabulary and phrases you've learned become more familiar and easier to understand in different contexts. Another tip to improve your listening is to break down your listening practice into smaller segments. Rather than listening to an entire podcast or video in one go, try breaking it into shorter sections. For example, listen to just 1 minute or a few sentences at a time. After each section, pause and think about what you heard. You can even replay it if needed. This is a more focused way to listen and helps you retain more information. You'll also get the chance to concentrate on specific parts of the content that you might have found tricky. In addition to breaking down content, it's useful to challenge yourself with different types of listening activities. For example, listening to a conversation is different from listening to a lecture or a news report. Try practicing different types of listening by exploring podcasts, YouTube videos, or audiobooks with a variety of formats. This exposes you to different speaking styles and topics, which is essential for improving your listening skills. As we continue to explore different ways to improve your listening skills, let's now dive deeper into the concept of repetition. Repetition is an incredibly powerful tool when learning any new skill, and listening is no exception. As you practice, listening to the same material multiple times, your brain starts to absorb the information in a way that allows you to better understand and retain it. Think of it as exercising your listening muscles. The more you repeat, the stronger your listening skills become. For instance, when you listen to an audio clip or podcast episode, take the time to listen to it more than once. After each round, you might notice that some words or phrases become clearer or more familiar. This is your brain creating connections between the sounds and the meanings. So, the next time you hear those words in a different context, you'll be able to recognize them more easily. It's almost like building a mental library of words and phrases that your brain can retrieve when needed. But repetition isn't just about listening to the same thing over and over. It's also important to listen to different kinds of content. Which brings us to our next strategy, diversifying your listening materials. One of the best ways to improve your listening comprehension is by listening to a wide range of content in English. This means not only listening to podcasts, but also watching TV shows, movies, and YouTube videos, or listening to music, radio programs, and audiobooks. Each of these types of media presents English in a different format, giving you exposure to different accents, speaking speeds, vocabulary, and expressions. This diversity in content allows your brain to adapt and improve in many areas of listening. For example, podcasts usually feature conversations or discussions on a variety of topics, making them an excellent resource for listening to real, spontaneous English. On the other hand, TV shows and movies often feature more casual conversational language, with characters using slang, idioms, and expressions that you might encounter in everyday speech. By exposing yourself to both formal and informal English, you're equipping yourself with the ability to understand a wider range of spoken language. Over time, you'll notice that your understanding improves, and you'll be able to follow along with conversations more easily, even if the speakers talk fast or use complex vocabulary. Next, let's discuss the importance of listening actively, which means not just hearing the words but truly trying to understand their meaning. Active listening involves engaging with the speaker and processing the message, rather than just passively hearing the sounds. A great way to practice active listening is to listen to short audio clips and try to summarize what you've heard. You can even pause the audio at intervals and try to predict what will come next. This will train your brain to pay closer attention and will help you become more aware of the details in conversations. Another active listening exercise you can try is asking yourself questions about the content after you've finished listening. For example, you could ask, "What was the main idea of the conversation? What new vocabulary did I hear?" Or, "How did the speaker express their thoughts?" These questions encourage you to think critically about the material and engage with it on a deeper level. Another helpful strategy is to break down listening practice into smaller, manageable chunks. When you're just starting out or if you're working with more difficult material, it can be overwhelming to listen to long segments without pausing to reflect. Instead, listen to short portions of a podcast or video and focus on understanding just a few sentences at a time. After each segment, pause and reflect on what you heard. You can even repeat the segment to reinforce your understanding. By breaking down the content, you're allowing your brain to process the information more easily and to focus on smaller, more manageable details. At this point, you may be wondering how to deal with situations where you don't understand everything. That's being said. This is perfectly normal and happens to all learners of a second language. The key here is not to get discouraged. If you don't understand a word or phrase, don't worry too much. Instead, try to focus on the overall meaning of the conversation. You can also try to guess the meaning of unfamiliar words by looking at the context. For example, if someone is talking about going to the store and mentions a word you don't understand, think about what they might be referring to based on the rest of the conversation. This strategy helps you use the context to fill in the gaps and understand the message even without knowing every single word. In addition to improving your listening skills, remember that practicing speaking goes hand in hand with improving your listening. As you listen more, you'll become familiar with the natural rhythm and flow of spoken English, which will make it easier for you to speak confidently. For instance, you can try to imitate the way native speakers pronounce words and sentences. Pay attention to their intonation, stress, and rhythm, and try to mimic these patterns when you speak. This will not only help improve your listening, but also enhance your pronunciation and fluency. Practicing speaking while you listen reinforces the connection between the two skills and accelerates your progress. Another tip is to focus on listening to content that is related to topics you enjoy. When you're listening to something that interests you, you're more likely to stay engaged and motivated. Whether it's a podcast about travel, cooking, sports, or any other topic you like, listening to something enjoyable will make the process much more enjoyable and less of a chore. The more passionate you are about the subject matter, the more likely you'll stay focused and improve your listening skills. Let's talk about something else that's often overlooked: the power of silence. After you've listened to a portion of content, take a moment to reflect on it. Don't rush into the next piece of material too quickly. Pause, close your eyes, and think about what you've just heard. This reflection time is incredibly important for strengthening your listening abilities. It allows you to process the information and internalize the vocabulary and expressions you've learned. When you give yourself time to reflect, your brain has a chance to consolidate the information and make it stick for the long term. Now let's briefly touch on one of the most effective techniques for improving your listening skills: shadowing. Shadowing is a technique where you listen to a speaker and try to repeat what they say in real time. This technique is great for practicing both listening and speaking at the same time. You can start by listening to short audio clips, repeating them word for word as you hear them, and then gradually increasing the length of the audio clips as you become more comfortable. Shadowing helps you improve your ability to understand spoken English and increases your speaking fluency. It's a fantastic way to train your ear to recognize different sounds, and it can also help improve your pronunciation and speaking speed. As we continue, let's not forget the importance of patience. Improving your listening skills takes time. And there will be moments when it feels like you're not making progress. But I want you to know that every bit of effort you put into practicing counts. Even on days when it feels difficult, you're still making progress. Consistent practice is the key to success, and as long as you stay committed to your listening exercises, you will gradually notice improvements. Finally, I want to encourage you to enjoy the process of learning English. Don't worry about being perfect. Instead, focus on the joy of discovering new words, phrases, and ideas. The more fun you have with your listening practice, the more motivated you'll be to continue. With consistent effort, you'll find that your listening skills improve, and you'll be able to enjoy understanding English more and more each day. So, dear listeners, remember to keep practicing daily, stay patient, and most importantly, have fun with your learning journey. Keep listening, keep challenging yourself, and watch your English skills grow. Let's now focus on another key strategy that will greatly enhance your listening ability: contextual listening. Understanding context is crucial when trying to comprehend spoken English. In real-life conversations, you might not catch every word, especially if the speaker talks quickly or uses unfamiliar vocabulary. But the context of the conversation can help you fill in the gaps. For instance, if you're listening to a conversation about a holiday, even if you don't understand some of the words, you can still make a pretty good guess about the meaning based on the general topic, the tone of voice, and any visual clues available. This is why it's essential to not just focus on individual words, but to understand the bigger picture. Take a moment and think about a situation where you've been in a conversation but didn't understand every single word. What did you do? If you thought about the topic, the emotions of the speaker, and the surrounding context, you probably found a way to understand the conversation. This is what we mean by contextual listening. When you practice this type of listening, you become more skilled at identifying important information and ignoring distractions. This brings me to another point: listening for key words. One technique to improve your listening is to focus on key words or phrases that are most important to the message. Not every word in a sentence is necessary to understand the main idea. Often it's the verbs, nouns, or adjectives that carry the most meaning. When you listen for these key words, you can often figure out the general meaning of what's being said even if you don't catch everything. For example, if someone says, "I went to the store to buy some fruit and vegetables," the key words here are store, buy, and fruit and vegetables. These words give you the main idea of the sentence. Even if you miss the words in between, you'll still understand what the speaker is talking about. It's also important to listen to different accents and dialects of English. English is spoken in so many different ways around the world, and each accent has its own unique sound and rhythm. By listening to a variety of accents, you not only improve your listening comprehension, but you also become more familiar with the diversity of English-speaking cultures. For example, if you're used to hearing American English, try listening to British or Australian English. You may find that some words are pronounced differently, or that certain phrases are used in different ways. The more exposure you get to different accents, the better you'll be at understanding English in all its forms. Next, let's consider how you can improve your understanding of fast speech. Many English learners struggle with understanding native speakers who talk quickly, but this is something that can be improved with practice. One way to do this is by gradually increasing the speed of the content you listen to. Start with slower-paced podcasts or videos, and as you get comfortable, slowly increase the speed. You can adjust the playback speed on platforms like YouTube, so you can listen to content at a speed that suits your current level. At first, it may be difficult to understand, but with consistent practice, your brain will adapt, and you'll get better at keeping up with faster speech. Another technique that can be really helpful is listening and repeating. You've probably heard of the technique of shadowing that I mentioned earlier, but you can also try repeating what you hear immediately after you hear it. This is a great way to train both your listening and speaking skills. After listening to a short clip or conversation, pause it and try to repeat exactly what you heard. Pay attention to the pronunciation, stress, and intonation of the speaker. This will help you not only improve your listening, but also your speaking fluency. Plus, you'll become more comfortable with different English accents and speaking styles. It's also worth mentioning the power of note-taking while listening. While listening to English, try jotting down key points or new words that you don't understand. This helps you stay focused and engage actively with the material. After listening, go back and review your notes. You can look up the meanings of any new words and try to use them in sentences. This will help reinforce the new vocabulary and improve your overall understanding of the content. Additionally, writing things down helps solidify your memory of what you've heard, which is especially helpful when you're learning English in the long term. Another technique to boost your listening skills is using subtitles. When you're watching a movie or a TV show in English, try using English subtitles instead of translations in your native language. Reading the subtitles while listening to the spoken words helps reinforce the connection between the spoken and written form of English. It's also useful to watch content that is aimed at language learners, as these often have clear pronunciation and slower pacing. There are many YouTube channels and websites that provide content specifically for English learners, so be sure to check them out. By watching and listening at the same time, you'll start to pick up more natural language, idiomatic expressions, and vocabulary that native speakers use on a daily basis. At this point, I'd like to encourage you to find a language learning community or a study buddy to practice listening with. It can be very helpful to have someone to practice with, especially if you're just starting out or if you're working on a challenging level of English. By practicing together, you can discuss the content you listen to, share new vocabulary, and correct each other's mistakes. Having a study buddy can make the process more enjoyable and it helps you stay motivated. You can join online forums, social media groups, or even language exchange platforms to find others who are working on improving their English. Let's move on to another strategy, the use of language apps. Many language apps include listening, exercises where you can practice understanding different accents, speaking speeds, and contexts. Some apps even have interactive features, such as quizzes or games, to test your listening comprehension and vocabulary. These can be a fun and engaging way to practice regularly and measure your progress over time. If you don't already use a language app, I highly recommend exploring some options. They often provide tailored exercises to help you work on specific areas of weakness, such as pronunciation or understanding spoken English in noisy environments. Lastly, I want to talk about the importance of listening to a variety of topics. If you only listen to content related to one subject, you might struggle when you encounter a conversation or podcast on a completely different topic. By listening to a variety of topics, you prepare yourself to understand English in different contexts. For example, listening to content about technology, culture, history, and daily life can introduce you to new vocabulary and expressions. Each time you listen to something new, you expand your vocabulary and improve your overall comprehension. And as always, be patient with yourself. Learning English, especially listening, takes time and effort. But with consistent practice and the strategies I've shared with you today, you will definitely improve. Continue practicing every day, stay motivated, and embrace the process. The more you expose yourself to English, the more confident you'll become in your ability to understand and speak it. So, dear listeners, remember that listening is a skill that can be developed with practice. Use the tips and techniques I've already shared today to enhance your listening abilities. Keep practicing, keep listening, and soon you'll find yourself understanding English better and better every day. Let's dive even deeper into how you can make your listening practice even more effective. One strategy that many advanced learners use, which can be especially beneficial at your level, is active listening. This means not just passively hearing the words, but actively thinking about the content as you listen. For example, while listening to an English podcast or watching a video, try to predict what will happen next in the conversation. Think about the general topic, the clues in the speaker's tone, and their body language, if you can see them. Predicting what's coming next will force your brain to stay engaged with the material, and you'll get better at understanding natural speech patterns. Moreover, during active listening, it's also helpful to pause frequently and reflect. After listening to a section of audio, stop and ask yourself questions. For instance, what was the main idea? What were the key details? Was there anything you didn't understand? This practice helps you to not just hear words, but really absorb their meaning. Try to identify any new vocabulary and take notes on it. When you encounter a word you don't understand, pause the recording and look it up. This will deepen your vocabulary knowledge and improve your ability to comprehend similar words in future conversations. Now, let's talk about the importance of using audio material that is slightly above your current level. It's natural for beginners and even intermediate learners to feel frustrated when they can't understand everything, but listening to material that is just slightly above your level will push you to learn new words and structures. It may seem difficult at first, but don't worry. This challenge will gradually improve your listening skills. By exposing yourself to a range of topics and vocabulary that stretch your knowledge, you increase your chances of encountering the same words or expressions again in the future. This reinforces your learning and makes the process more rewarding. Another powerful tool in your English listening practice is repetition. Repetition helps to reinforce what you've learned. After listening to a piece of content, go back and listen to it again, perhaps even multiple times. The first time you listen, you may not catch all the words, but after hearing the same content several times, you'll begin to understand more. You will also notice new words or phrases that you missed the first time. This is why many language learners recommend listening to the same audio or video several times over the course of a few days or weeks. The repetition allows the language to sink in deeper and enhances your comprehension. In addition to repetition, changing the type of content you listen to can significantly improve your ability to understand spoken English. A common mistake English learners make is sticking to one type of listening material, such as podcasts or YouTube videos. While these are valuable resources, it's important to diversify your sources. Listen to audiobooks, news reports, TV shows, radio programs, and even informal conversations between friends. Each source has a different style and tone, and by listening to various types of content, you get a more well-rounded understanding of English. You'll be able to understand both formal and informal speech, and you'll become familiar with different registers and tones of conversation. Something else that's incredibly helpful for improving listening is shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to a recording and immediately repeat what you hear, mimicking the speaker's intonation, speed, and pronunciation. This is an advanced listening technique that improves both your listening and speaking skills. By repeating what you hear, you also train your ear to catch nuances in speech that might be difficult to understand otherwise. This is especially helpful for non-native speakers who are learning to speak English fluently and naturally. Now, let's explore how the use of transcripts can boost your listening skills. A transcript is a written version of a conversation, podcast, or speech. Many language learners overlook this tool, but it can be incredibly helpful. After listening to a podcast or watching a video, try to read the transcript while listening to the audio again. This helps reinforce the connection between the spoken and written word. You'll begin to notice patterns in pronunciation, linking, and word stress that are hard to pick up by just listening. By reading the transcript, you also have the opportunity to check your understanding and learn any new vocabulary. In addition, subtitles are another great resource. If you're watching a TV show or movie, use English subtitles rather than translations into your native language. This reinforces your listening comprehension and helps you understand the relationship between spoken and written English. Subtitles can provide context to the spoken word, helping you understand the tone and meaning of phrases. If a particular word or expression catches your attention, make a note of it and try using it in your own conversations. With repeated exposure, you'll feel more confident using these new words and phrases in the future. Let's take a moment to explore how creating a structured routine around your listening practice can be a game changer. Just like any skill, consistency is key. Imagine you're training for a marathon. You wouldn't run once a week and expect to cross the finish line effortlessly, right? The same goes for improving your listening skills in English. You need regular, focused practice to see progress. Start by setting aside 15 to 30 minutes every day for listening practice. It could be during your morning commute, your lunch break, or even right before bed. The important thing is to make it a daily habit. Now, what should you include in your routine? I recommend starting with a warm-up exercise. This could be as simple as listening to a short, familiar audio clip or podcast episode to get your ears tuned in to the rhythm of English. This warm-up helps activate your brain and prepares you for more challenging material. After that, dive into your main practice session. Choose an audio recording that aligns with your interests, perhaps a podcast about travel, technology, or even cooking. When you're genuinely interested in the topic, you're more likely to stay engaged and absorb the language. Another essential element of your routine is incorporating variety. While it's great to have favorite podcasts or shows, don't limit yourself to a single source of listening material. Exposure to different accents, speech patterns, and vocabulary is crucial for building a well-rounded understanding of English. For example, try listening to British English one day and American English the next. Then explore other accents like Australian or Canadian. Each accent has its own unique features, and being familiar with these will make you a more confident listener in global conversations. Let's talk about one of the most effective but often overlooked techniques: summarizing what you hear. After listening to a piece of audio, take a few minutes to summarize it out loud or in writing. What was the main idea? What were the key points? What new vocabulary or expressions did you notice? This exercise forces you to process the information more deeply, making it stick in your memory. If you're working with a language partner or tutor, you can share your summary with them and get feedback. Even if you're practicing alone, this technique is a great way to reinforce your learning. Another strategy to consider is listening in chunks. Long recordings can feel overwhelming, especially if you're not used to them. Instead of trying to tackle an entire podcast episode or audiobook in one go, break it down into smaller sections. Listen to a few minutes at a time, then pause to reflect or take notes. This makes the material more manageable and allows you to focus on understanding each part before moving on. Over time, as your listening skills improve, you can gradually increase the length of the recordings you tackle in one session. Let's not forget the importance of setting specific goals for your listening practice. Goals give you something to aim for and help you measure your progress. For instance, you might set a goal to learn 10 new words or phrases from each podcast episode you listen to. Or you could aim to understand 80% of a news report without looking at the transcript. Having clear, measurable objectives keeps you motivated and focused. And when you achieve those goals, don't forget to celebrate. Recognizing your progress is an important part of staying motivated. In addition to setting goals, it's important to challenge yourself periodically. If you always stick to material that feels comfortable, you might not push yourself to grow. Every now and then, try listening to something that's slightly outside your comfort zone. This could be a fast-paced conversation, a technical lecture, or a comedy show with lots of slang. It's okay if you don't understand everything. That's part of the learning process. The more you expose yourself to challenging material, the more your brain will adapt and improve. Now, let's talk about the role of mindfulness in listening practice. It might sound surprising, but being present and fully focused while listening can make a huge difference in how much you understand and retain. When you're distracted or multitasking, it's harder to absorb new information. So, try to create a distraction-free environment for your listening practice. Turn off notifications, find a quiet space, and give your full attention to the audio. You'll be amazed at how much more you pick up when you're fully engaged. Another tip for improving your listening is to actively engage with the content. Don't just listen passively, ask yourself questions as you go. For example, if you're listening to a podcast about travel, think about questions like, where is the speaker talking about? What are the main attractions they mentioned? What's their opinion about the place? Actively thinking about the content keeps your brain engaged and helps you make connections between what you hear and what you already know. Let's discuss the importance of cultural context in listening. Language is more than just words. It's deeply tied to culture. Understanding cultural references, idioms, and expressions can significantly enhance your listening skills. For instance, if a speaker says, "It's raining cats and dogs," understanding that this is an idiom for heavy rain helps you grasp the meaning more quickly. The best way to learn these cultural nuances is by immersing yourself in authentic content such as movies, TV shows, and podcasts created by native speakers. Over time, you'll become more familiar with these cultural aspects and find it easier to understand native speakers. Another powerful technique is to practice predicting what you'll hear next. When you're listening to a conversation or story, pause and ask yourself, what do I think the speaker will say next? Predicting the flow of the conversation forces you to stay actively engaged and think ahead. It also helps you develop a better understanding of natural speech patterns and logical structures in English. The more you practice this, the better. You'll become at anticipating what comes next in conversations, making it easier to follow along. Let's not underestimate the value of patience and persistence. Improving your listening skills takes time, and it's normal to feel frustrated at times. There will be moments when you don't understand everything, and that's okay. Remember, every step you take brings you closer to fluency. Even if progress feels slow, trust that your efforts are paying off. Keep practicing, stay consistent, and don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. Over time, you'll notice significant improvements in your ability to understand and respond in English. Let's dive deeper into building a robust listening practice. To start, let's explore the idea of immersing yourself in English throughout your day. Immersion doesn't mean you have to live in an English-speaking country. You can create an English-rich environment wherever you are. Begin your day by listening to a short podcast or an audio news segment while you prepare breakfast or commute to work. Even a 5-minute dose of English first thing in the morning can help tune your ears to the language, setting a positive tone for the rest of the day. Next, consider incorporating English into your daily routines. For example, while doing chores like cooking, cleaning, or even exercising, play an English audiobook, a podcast, or even your favorite English songs. The key is exposure, allowing your brain to get used to hearing English regularly. The more you hear, the more familiar it becomes. Over time, you'll notice that your ability to recognize words, phrases, and patterns in speech improves naturally. A fun and engaging way to practice listening is by watching English language TV shows or movies. Choose shows with subtitles if you're still building your confidence, but try to focus on the spoken words rather than relying solely on the text. Watching sitcoms, dramas, or documentaries not only improves your listening, but also introduces you to everyday expressions, cultural nuances, and natural conversation styles. You can even pause the show at key moments to repeat what you hear, mimicking the pronunciation and intonation of the speakers. Another method to enhance your listening skills is by joining an online community or a language learning group. Many platforms offer live sessions where you can listen to native speakers and even participate in conversations. Listening to real-time discussions pushes you to focus intently, as you won't have the luxury of rewinding or slowing down the audio. These live sessions are also a great way to meet other learners, exchange tips, and practice speaking in a supportive environment. Let's not forget the importance of reviewing and revisiting what you've learned. After listening to a podcast or watching a video, take a few minutes to reflect on what you understood. Write down key points or summarize the content in your own words. This exercise helps reinforce your learning and ensures that you're actively engaging with the material rather than passively consuming it. Over time, you'll find that this habit of summarizing becomes second nature, helping you retain more information from each session. Now, let's explore the role of focused listening. While general exposure is beneficial, dedicating time to intensive listening sessions is equally important. In focused listening, you choose a specific piece of audio, perhaps a short speech, an interview, or even a song, and listen to it multiple times. On the first listen, try to get the overall idea. On subsequent listens, focus on specific details, such as vocabulary, pronunciation, or sentence structure. By breaking down the audio into smaller, manageable chunks, you can study it more thoroughly and gain a deeper understanding of its content. A valuable tip for focused listening is to use transcripts whenever possible. Many podcasts and online videos provide transcripts that you can read alongside the audio. This allows you to match written words with their spoken forms, making it easier to identify unfamiliar sounds or phrases. After listening, challenge yourself to repeat or shadow what you hear. Shadowing is a technique where you listen to a speaker and then immediately repeat their words, trying to match their tone, rhythm, and pronunciation. This practice not only improves your listening, but also boosts your speaking fluency. Another strategy is to incorporate thematic listening into your practice. Choose a specific topic or theme, such as travel, health, or technology, and focus on listening to content related to that theme for a week or two. This approach helps you build specialized vocabulary and become familiar with common expressions and discussions within that context. For instance, if you choose travel, you might listen to travel vlogs, airport announcements, and podcasts about vacation planning. By immersing yourself in a single theme, You'll develop a deeper understanding of the language used in that area. Let's also talk about the power of reflective listening. After listening to a piece of audio, ask yourself reflective questions. What was the main message? What details stood out? Were there any words or phrases I didn't understand? Reflective listening helps you analyze your comprehension and identify areas where you need more practice. If you come across unfamiliar words, look them up and write them down in a notebook or language app. Review these words regularly and try to use them in your own sentences to solidify your understanding. Now let's address the role of mindset in your listening journey. It's easy to feel discouraged when you don't understand something, especially if you're listening to fast speakers or unfamiliar accents. But remember, every challenge is an opportunity to grow. Instead of focusing on what you didn't understand, celebrate what you did catch. Over time, the gaps in your comprehension will naturally fill in as you gain more exposure and practice. Maintaining a positive and curious mindset is key to staying motivated and making steady progress. One final suggestion is to incorporate listening quizzes or exercises into your routine. Many language learning platforms and apps offer interactive listening activities where you listen to a short clip and then answer questions about it. These quizzes test your comprehension and help you gauge your progress. They're also a fun way to challenge yourself and keep your practice sessions engaging. Let's pause for a moment. Are you starting to feel inspired? Can you imagine yourself implementing these strategies into your daily routine? The road to mastering English listening might feel long, but each small step brings you closer to your goal. The key is to stay consistent, patient, and open to learning from every opportunity. Remember, every moment you spend listening to English is a moment spent investing in your future. Keep going, you're doing great. Now, let's explore the idea of integrating active and passive listening into your day-to-day life. Active listening is when you focus entirely on the audio, like sitting down to listen to a podcast with a notebook in hand. Passive listening, on the other hand, happens when you let English audio play in the background while you're doing other things, like cleaning or cooking. Both approaches are valuable, but let's break down how to make the most of each. For active listening, set aside a dedicated time each day. Start small, maybe just 10 or 15 minutes. During this time, eliminate distractions and concentrate fully on the audio. For instance, if you're listening to a story, imagine the scenes in your mind. Picture the characters, the setting, and the actions as they unfold. Visualization strengthens your comprehension and makes the experience more engaging. Take notes on unfamiliar words or phrases, but don't interrupt the flow of your listening too often. Instead, jot down quick reminders and revisit them after you finish the audio. Passive listening is equally powerful because it allows you to absorb the language effortlessly over time. Even if you're not paying full attention, your brain is still picking up patterns, sounds, and rhythms of English. To make passive listening effective, choose materials that are enjoyable and match your current level. This could be light conversations, music, or even a favorite TV show that you've already watched in your native language. Repetition is key. Listening to the same audio multiple times helps you catch details you might have missed the first time. Another important aspect of improving your listening is understanding accents. English is spoken with a wide variety of accents: British, American, Australian, Indian, and many more. Exposing yourself to these different accents will broaden your comprehension skills and prepare you for real-world conversations. Start with one accent that you're comfortable with and gradually introduce others. For example, you might begin with an American podcast, then switch to a British drama series, and later explore Australian news clips. As you listen, pay attention to unique pronunciation patterns and slang used in each accent. Don't worry if it feels challenging at first. With consistent practice, your ear will adapt. Let's also talk about building your vocabulary while you listen. One way to do this is by creating a personal vocabulary journal. Each time you hear a new word or phrase, write it down along with its meaning and an example sentence. Later, practice using these words in your own sentences. For instance, if you learn the word thrilled from a podcast, you might write, "I was thrilled to get a good grade on my exam." By actively using the words you hear, you'll make them a permanent part of your vocabulary. Another technique is listening for context clues. Often you might not understand every single word, and that's okay. Instead of pausing or rewinding immediately, try to guess the meaning of unfamiliar words based on the surrounding words or the tone of the speaker. This skill is crucial for real-life situations where you won't have the luxury of looking up words instantly. For example, if someone says, "I felt so elated when I got the promotion," even if you don't know the word elated, you can infer it means something positive from the context. To keep your practice interesting, try incorporating games and challenges into your listening routine. For instance, listen to a short clip and try to write down as much as you can from memory. Then, compare your notes to the transcript or subtitles to see how much you got right. This exercise improves your memory and helps you pay closer attention to details. You can also challenge yourself by listening to faster-paced audio or audio with background noise, like a cafe scene in a movie. These challenges simulate real-world environments and prepare you for situations where English isn't spoken perfectly or clearly. Music is another fantastic tool for enhancing listening skills. Songs are not only enjoyable but also packed with idiomatic expressions, phrasal verbs, and cultural references. Choose songs with clear lyrics and listen to them repeatedly. Try to sing along, focusing on matching the singer's pronunciation and rhythm. Look up the lyrics if needed and analyze them line by line. Understanding the meaning behind the lyrics can give you insights into how words and phrases are used creatively in English. Another valuable practice is listening to news in English. News broadcasts often use formal language, making them a great resource for learning clear and structured speech. Start with headlines or short news clips before moving on to longer segments. Many news websites also offer simplified versions of their stories, designed for language learners. As you listen, focus on how the speakers emphasize important words and convey emotion through their tone. Finally, let's discuss how to stay motivated and track your progress. Language learning is a journey, and it's important to celebrate small victories along the way. Keep a listening log where you record the materials you've listened to, along with your thoughts and any new words you've learned. Reflect on your growth by revisiting older entries and noticing how much more you understand now compared to before. Set achievable goals, like listening to a podcast every day for a week, or understanding a specific number of new words by the end of the month. Achieving these milestones will boost your confidence and keep you excited about learning. Real-life listening scenarios. One of the best ways to improve your English listening skills is by immersing yourself in real-life scenarios where English is spoken. These experiences not only expose you to natural speech, but also teach you how to respond in different contexts. At the grocery store, when shopping, try listening to background conversations or announcements. Pay attention to the way questions are asked, such as, "Do you have any organic apples?" or how cashiers greet customers with phrases like, "Would you like a bag for that?" Mimicking these interactions can help you feel more comfortable speaking and understanding English in everyday situations. On public transport, use your commute as a listening opportunity. Many public transit systems have announcements in English, such as, "The next stop is Central Station." Focus on the clarity and tone of the speaker. If you're using ride-sharing services, listen to the driver's language and practice phrases like, "Can you drop me off here, please?" At restaurants or cafes. While dining out, listen to how servers interact with customers. Common phrases include, "What can I get for you today?" or "Would you like to see the dessert menu?" Practice responding as if you're ordering in English, even if you don't need to. In social gatherings, attend meetups, events, or online gatherings where English is spoken. Pay attention to introductions, small talk, and group discussions. Try to pick up on idiomatic expressions and cultural nuances, such as breaking the ice in a conversation. Podcasts and audiobooks are excellent resources for improving your listening skills because they offer a wide range of topics and accents. Here's how you can make the most of them. Choose the right content. Select podcasts or audiobooks that match your interests. For example, if you enjoy technology, listen to a podcast about innovations in artificial intelligence. If you love storytelling, pick audiobooks with engaging plots or narrated memoirs. Listen actively and passively. Start with active listening to grasp the main ideas and key vocabulary. Then, switch to passive listening by replaying the content while you're doing other activities, such as cleaning or exercising. This dual approach reinforces your understanding over time. Use playback features. Many platforms allow you to slow down or speed up playback. Start with a slower speed if you're struggling to catch every word, and gradually increase it as you become more comfortable. Take notes. While listening, jot down words or phrases that catch your attention. For instance, if you hear pivotal moment, note it down and look it up later. Then, use it in your own sentences to solidify your understanding. Engage with the content. For podcasts, try answering discussion questions or summarizing the episode in your own words. For audiobooks, think about the characters and plot, and imagine explaining the story to a friend. Creative listening activities. Engaging in creative activities can make listening practice more enjoyable and effective. Role-playing games. Create imaginary scenarios and act them out. For example, pretend to be a tourist asking for directions, or a customer returning a faulty product. Record your responses and compare them with native speakers' examples to refine your pronunciation and phrasing. Dictation practice. Choose a short audio clip and try to write down everything you hear. Then compare your transcription with the original text. This activity sharpens your attention to detail and helps you recognize common sentence structures. Shadowing technique. Listen to a sentence or phrase and repeat it immediately, imitating the speaker's tone, rhythm, and pronunciation. This technique improves your listening and speaking skills simultaneously. Music and lyrics. Listen to your favorite English songs and focus on understanding the lyrics. Apps like Music's Match can display synced lyrics, allowing you to follow along. Singing along improves your pronunciation and rhythm. Engaging with native speakers. Interacting with native speakers is one of the most effective ways to improve your listening skills. Here's how to make these interactions count. Language exchange. Join platforms like Tandem or HelloTalk to connect with native English speakers who want to learn your language. Schedule regular video or voice calls to practice real-time conversations. Online communities. Participate in online forums, social media groups, or gaming communities where English is the primary language. Actively contribute to discussions. Listen to others' responses and ask for feedback. Cultural immersion. Attend virtual tours, online cooking classes, or cultural workshops conducted in English. Listening to instructors or participants with different accents exposes you to diverse ways of speaking. Improving. Listening for specific purposes. Sometimes you need to tailor your listening practice to specific goals, such as passing an exam, understanding workplace communication, or traveling abroad. Exam preparation. If you're preparing for English proficiency tests like TOEFL or IELTS, practice with past exam recordings or mock tests. Focus on understanding the structure of listening tasks and the types of questions asked. Workplace communication. If you need English for your job, listen to business podcasts, webinars, or presentations. Pay attention to formal expressions, technical jargon, and polite requests such as, "Could you clarify that point for me?" Travel English. Watch travel vlogs or listen to travel-themed podcasts. Learn phrases commonly used at airports, hotels, or tourist attractions such as, "Where is the nearest currency exchange?" Or "What time does the tour start?" Tracking your progress. Improving your listening skills requires consistent effort and tracking your progress. Here are some ways to measure your improvement. Listening logs. Keep a journal where you record the date, audio source, duration, and key takeaways from each listening session. Review your entries regularly to see how much you've learned. Self-testing. Periodically test yourself by summarizing audio clips, answering comprehension questions, or identifying key details in a conversation. Feedback from peers. Share your listening experiences with friends, language partners, or teachers. They can provide valuable insights and suggest areas for improvement. Building confidence. Through practice, finally, remember that confidence is key to effective listening. Don't be afraid to make mistakes or ask for clarification when you don't understand something. Every effort you make brings you closer to fluency. Practice active listening during your conversations by maintaining eye contact, nodding, and responding appropriately. These habits show that you're fully engaged and encourage others to speak clearly and naturally. Advanced techniques for listening mastery. Achieving excellence in listening goes beyond basic exercises. It involves adopting advanced strategies that train your brain to process and understand spoken English more efficiently. Chunking information. Native speakers often group words into chunks or phrases rather than saying each word individually. For example, instead of hearing, "What do you want to do?" as 7 separate words, it might sound like, "What do you want to do?" Train yourself to recognize and understand these chunks. You can do this by focusing on dialogues in movies or TV shows and breaking down the speech patterns into manageable pieces. Predictive listening. Before you listen to a conversation or audio, try to predict what you might hear based on the context. For instance, if you're about to listen to a weather forecast, expect phrases like rain showers, partly cloudy, or high temperatures. This technique activates your mind, making it easier to process what you hear. Layered listening. Practice listening to the same audio multiple times but with different goals each time. In the first round, focus on understanding the overall meaning. In the second round, concentrate on specific details, such as numbers or dates. In the third round, analyze the speaker's tone and intention. Paraphrasing. After listening to a sentence or passage, paraphrase it in your own words. For example, if you hear, "The company plans to expand its operations in Europe next year," you could rephrase it as, "They'll grow their business in Europe next year." This helps reinforce comprehension and retention. Expanding your listening resources. Diversifying your listening material exposes you to different accents, topics, and levels of complexity. Here are some unique resources to consider. Documentaries and educational content. Platforms like YouTube and Netflix have a wealth of documentaries on topics ranging from wildlife to historical events. These programs often use clear, articulate language, making them ideal for learners. Pay attention to how experts explain concepts and the vocabulary they use. Live streams and webinars. Many professionals host live streams or webinars in English. Join these sessions to listen to real-time discussions, Q&A segments, and industry-specific jargon. Take notes and review them later to solidify your understanding. Interactive apps. Apps like BBC Learning English or LLLO, English Listening. Lesson Library online provides structured lessons with transcripts, quizzes, and exercises tailored to different proficiency levels. Voice notes and messages. If you have English-speaking friends or colleagues, exchange voice messages. Listening to real-life unscripted speech helps you adapt to various speaking styles and speeds. Radio shows and talk programs. Tune in to radio stations or talk shows that feature interviews, discussions, and listener calls. These formats often include a mix of formal and informal speech, giving you a broader perspective. Listening for different accents. English is a global language with a variety of accents, including British, American, Australian, and Indian. Familiarizing yourself with these accents will make you a more versatile listener. Accent-specific practice. Choose content from different regions, such as BBC for British English, NPR for American English, or ABC for Australian English. Focus on how vowels, consonants, and intonation vary. Mimicking accents. While practicing shadowing, try to mimic the accent you're listening to. This improves your ability to differentiate sounds and enhances your pronunciation. Cultural context. Understanding cultural references, idioms, and humor unique to each region helps you better interpret the meaning behind what you hear. So, dear listeners, as we come to the end of today's session, I want to remind you of the power of consistent practice. Improving your listening skills doesn't happen overnight, but with daily effort, the right tools, and a curious mindset, you'll notice progress before you know it. Remember, make listening a fun part of your daily life. Explore new podcasts, engage in conversations, and enjoy the process of discovering the beauty of the English language. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found these tips and techniques useful. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with more episodes to help you on your English learning journey. Until next time, keep practicing, stay motivated, and enjoy every step of your learning experience.